Let me say something unconventional. Of course, all these three have messed up. They have failed the country, but you know what? I would actually argue that the politician is least guilty among these three. Not because politicians are nice fellows or lily white or anything of the kind, but because for the misdeeds of politicians, there are legitimate and genuine compulsions today. Do you know how much it costs to contest for an assembly seat in Andhra Pradesh today, or Karnataka, or Tamil Nadu? If you are a serious competitor? Anybody has an idea? How much does it cost? No, not for one assembly seat. 100 crores is, we have still not reached that level. Anybody? 4 or 5 crores is the norm. There are cases where 15, 20, 25 crores are spent for one assembly constituency by one candidate. But that still is not the average or the norm. But the median expenditure is easily about 5 crores for state assembly constituency in many states. And if it's Lok Sabha constituency, it's about 25 crores. Just 3 days ago, I was with the Law Minister of India. We were discussing some of these numbers. And he's saying, my God, in Andhra Pradesh is, he talked about some other states and compared and all that. Now, let's assume that that's the kind of money you have to spend. If somebody spent 5 crore rupees to be a legislator at the state level, without even executive authority, can you realistically expect that there will be honesty in governance? I mean, obviously, he's not going to spend 5 crores of his personal money because he loves the country so much that he has to serve as a legislator. Otherwise, no, his heart will stop beating. So, if the politician, therefore, is resorting to all kinds of dirty things, this is the money part. There's also another part. We'll come to it later. The expectations. And therefore, to meet the expectations, a certain trajectory of action. And therefore, the consequences. So, there are serious compulsions. At least they mitigate the politician's culpability. Because the problem is bigger than that of an individual politician. There's a larger systemic problem. And honesty is increasingly incompatible with survival. There are honest politicians, many, but they can no longer survive. Even if they are personally clean, they have to allow systemic dishonesty to survive. Or else they are increasingly marginalized in politics and ejected out of politics. See, the price is so great, then we must regard probably these fellows more as victims than villains. They're of course also villains, there's no question about it, but they're also oftentimes victims. If we don't examine that, understand this, we'll not be part of the solution. The bureaucrat actually is more guilty because the bureaucrat cannot complain that his survival depends on dishonesty. Many of you aspire to be civil servants, you know many civil servants. In no other country does a civil servant get the kind of enormous security as in India. Once you enter government at any level, from a chaprasi to an IAS officer, you are practically invulnerable. Even if you are thoroughly incompetent, even if you are manifestly corrupt, it's almost impossible to sack you. You are the son-in-law of the government. But even the bureaucrat can complain that, look, while my survival does not depend on this, my sense of well-being sometimes does depend, because if I am seen to be very uncompromising, then maybe I would be transferred too many times and there will be some kind of difficulties, yes, or sometimes even emotional difficulty, even if there is no physical discomfort. After all, you invest a lot of emotional energy into that, you want to achieve goals for the country or society, and you are thrown from pillar to post, and so therefore that emotional pain is quite palpable. Though many of us tell people, look, it doesn't matter, you just move on and do what is required. But there is a genuine emotional difficulty. We can understand that. A judge is even more guilty, because a judge is invulnerable to political vagaries. Because judiciary is truly independent in this country. And yet, the failures of judiciary in terms of performance or in terms of integrity are as pronounced, if not more pronounced, than those of the politician and the bureaucrat. Now, I am saying this not because I hate judges, but just to restore a balance in public discourse, to deepen your perception about what is wrong in India. It's not this fellow or that fellow. There's no point trying to find alibis. We have to look deeper. There is a larger systemic process at work. And that's why we must look at the political process and the governance process together.